I wanted to start with the fact that we are now 80 days since the $600 unemployment expired. Remember that $600 expansion for the unemployment expired. That was on July 26th. It has been 80 days that people who were relying on this or just something extra aren't getting it. And Trump, who is basically bipolar on the issue, not that I don't take that illness seriously, but 1 minute he wants go big, huge stimulus. The next minute, McConnell and the Republicans and Trump say we're only giving you X amount. Well, Trump has increased his rate to 1.8 trillion. And I tried going through this on Sunday during the broadcast. 1.8 trillion was the offer. And Nancy Pelosi refuses to accept it. Now, let me be clear. The fact of the matter is, we are in the middle of a pandemic, and millions of people are literally screwed. But you don't really hear much about that in the corporate media because the fixation is Trump's deteriorating more and more into psychopathy. I mean, I don't even think he's a sociopath now. He's a psychopath if you've been paying attention to his actions of the last 2-3 weeks. So the Amy Coney Barrett hearings are going on. And all the focus is on Amy Coney Barrett. And that's, of course, important. She's most likely going to get rammed through. I think she's very likely the deciding vote in overturning Roe versus Wade. I'm just keeping it real. We've heard the stuff about her being a, I guess you could say, the Handmaid's Tale and her. Jen covered it yesterday. What's amazing to me is during a pandemic, 80 days later, people have no unemployment. I just did a call out on Twitter. Hey, looking for stories of folks unemployed for 6 months or longer amid coronavirus. We'll be talking about this on the live stream. I mean, just look at these. I've been unemployed since March. Benefits run out in 2 weeks. Unemployment has only been paying out 25% of my usual income. My job will likely not be back until there is a vaccine. I spent my paltry savings just on bills, food, etc. Another one. Had to leave my serving job in March because of COVID health risks. I have a pre-existing condition. Couldn't collect unemployment once the restaurant opened back up, but also couldn't go back to work. I've been without income for over 6 months now and surviving on student loans. Worked for an environmental science lab. Was told initially it would be temporary. 6 months later, here I am. Laid off in May. Apply continually, but nothing has come through. Life shreds at the salvages. We hang on. It's amazing what a little mercy from we the people would do. Somebody wrote, does 5 years unemployment count? 5 years. Another one. I worked at a restaurant near Disneyland for 10 years, got laid off when COVID hit in March, and now I'm broke and very worried about the holidays because there may be no stimulus coming until next year, and thus no extra unemployment. So that's just one tweet. If you look on Reddit, the stories are brutal. We have suicides increasing during this pandemic. But you really wouldn't know. You really wouldn't know any of this if you were watching CNN, MSNBC, the New York Times, the Washington Post. Do I think Trump should have been covered as far as having COVID? Do I think Trump should be covered as far as his administration being absolutely insane and reckless in relation to COVID? Yeah, I do. But the fact of the matter is we are in a economic crisis. We are in an absolute desperate times. But Nancy Pelosi is refusing just to accept the 1.8 trillion offer that Trump has offered. And by the way, to be clear, I don't think 1.8 trillion is enough. I think Trump and the Republicans' offer is pennies compared to the level of the crisis. And I am normally not an advocate for just take what you can get politics. I am not an advocate for incrementalism. I am a go big type of person. But right now, it's 3 weeks before the election, and people need something. They can't survive. If Pelosi and the Democrats do not accept this deal, the $1.8 trillion, which would include $400 extra a week unemployment, another round of $1,200 checks, renewed PPP, those kind of things. What are people supposed to do? Tell me, what are people supposed to do? And I know the resistance folks watching, the comfortable wine moms in suburbia, will say, no, she shouldn't take the deal, Jordan. She should hold out. Yeah, well, the people saying that are probably not on the brink of economic collapse or homelessness. The people saying that are probably pretty comfortable. I don't think 1.8 trillion is enough. I don't think 2.2 trillion is enough, which is what Pelosi wants. I don't think $3 trillion is enough, which is what Pelosi and the HEROES Act recommended. I think we need borderline $5 to $6 trillion and Medicare for all. But the bottom line is this. If they don't accept now, there's not going to be any further stimulus until potentially either a Trump re-election or a Biden election. And judging by Obama's stimulus, it's not going to be enough, whatever Joe Biden proposes. You got the holidays coming up. You have people desperate that have not had that $600. They haven't had any federal stimulus. I you not. Excuse my French. Swear jar. Ro Khanna agrees with me. Here's Ro Khanna. People in need can't wait until February. 1.8 trillion is significant and more than twice the Obama stimulus. It will allow Biden to start with infrastructure. Obama won in 2008 by doing the right thing on TARP instead of what was expedient. Make a deal, put the ball in McConnell's court. I don't agree with everything he just wrote, but what I agree with in this case, $1.8 trillion is better than nothing right now if you are literally economically on the brink of collapse, if you are literally on the brink of homelessness. So my thoughts are, oh, by the way, Andrew Yang also said it's not a perfect deal, but Pelosi should accept the deal. So why aren't they accepting the deal? Why aren't they accepting the deal? And to be clear, this is not a cheerleading for $1.8 trillion. This is not me saying, oh, thank you, President Trump, you're wonderful. The bottom line, they don't want to hand Trump a victory. It is all theater. Pelosi's not interested in making a deal before the election. And it's you, the people, who are suffering. They won't accept the 1.8 trillion. Again, it would give $400 extra in unemployment. It would give another round of $1,200 checks, PPP money, some money to states and local governments, some money for contact tracing. They won't accept it because they don't want to hand Trump a victory. By the way, don't think that Biden and his campaign aren't involved in the decision not to make a deal. They don't want any type of deal to give Trump any type of political victory. I've had enough. People need help. I don't really care who's right or wrong. Trump and the Republicans are wrong because the original bailout was a giant, excuse my French, sexual favor to big corporations with Nancy Pelosi driving the getaway car. The Republicans and the Democrats both agreed to the grand bank robbery in the beginning of the coronavirus. The $2 trillion, when you leverage it, really $4 to $6 trillion bank robbery. Your money being stolen, given to multi-billion-dollar corporate conglomerates that didn't need it. That was the original bailout. So they're both at fault. But right now, I don't give a shit. Excuse my French. I don't care if 1.8 trillion is enough or not. It's not enough. It's not enough. Again, 2.2 trillion, which is what Pelosi is trying to get, is not enough. People need help right now. People needed help months ago. Most people could not afford for that extra $600 a month to expire. In this case, this is the rare exception. I am take whatever you could get. I don't care. Go big or go home. Pelosi should not be holding out. This is the best deal you're going to get from this psychopath. This is the best chance you're going to get from these sociopaths in the Republican Party. Period. End of story. Ro Khanna is right. Andrew Yang is right. And I'd really like to know, where are the progressives? Where are the progressives? Washington Post Jeff Steins reports. He talked to a Democrat member of Congress today who suggested that progressives, I assume, we're talking Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, Ilhan Omar, Rashida Tlaib, who else is in the squad, are not publicly breaking with Pelosi on stimulus, in part because it's unclear where the Republican demands are for a liability shield will end up, meaning blanket liability for employers to recklessly endanger their employees' lives with coronavirus and not be held liable legally. Added that would be an unacceptably high price given worker safety. Okay, well, can Congresswoman Ocasio-Cortez come out and say that? Could Congresswoman Rashida Tlaib come out and say that? Could Congresswoman Ilhan Omar come out and say this? And say, we should accept the deal if liability shields are not in there? 1.8 trillion is the best we're going to get right now. People desperately need help. We should have it at $600 a week, but we'll take $400 a week. This president is likely on his last legs politically. He's probably getting wiped out of office pretty soon. We'll get to that in a little bit. We need those $1,200 checks. And by the way, I don't think any of this is good enough because the original sin was the giant corporate bailout of the coronavirus bailout. But we are where we are. That passed. People are desperate. Hope you enjoyed that last video. Hop on over to statuscoup.com where you can sign up for our email list and become a member for as low as $5 to $10 a month. Membership is how we grow. That's statuscoup.com/join. And remember, join our email list so we can grow the revolution with you.